Fantasy Footballers Podcast with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey.
The Fantasy Footballers are back again. It's Thursday, February 6th, 2016. Also known as 6 years after Leslie Nielsen died, which Jason just found out.
Yes, it was in my Facebook feed, and apparently I missed that for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
R.I.P.
6
R.I.P.
years.
Leslie Nielsen. Hilarious.
He was funny. He was a funny fellow.
It's great.
Well,
Well, we can tie it into sports.
Sure.
One of my favorite comedic moments of all comedies
was it Naked Gun?
is the Naked Gun scene when he is the umpire.
Yeah.
And he's doing he gets really, really animated when he realizes that the crowd reacts.
Right.
And
To his strike calls?
Strike. Oh,
There you
man,
go.
that is
All right.
the good stuff.
Oh, well, we won't get into the other pre-show discussions, but we will maybe get into them after the show.
Oh,
Because we're
yes.
starting a new thing where we're going to put some extra content up on YouTube. Exclusive. And it is the show after the show. So you'll want to go to YouTube and subscribe to the channel so that you can get access to all of Jason finding out about celebrities that have died long ago.
So many things that I am learning as a man here today. But
He's a sponge.
the
It's
show
5
after
minutes
the show,
to teach Jason about.
yes, the show
something.
after the show should be really good today. Today being the last show
Before
the Super Bowl.
That is true. And on today's show, we've got the rookie rundown, running backs and tight ends. So we're going to break down all of the rookies from the past year, how we project them forward. Will they be better or worse? Sure, we think they'll be better, but maybe some of these guys just aren't what we thought they were, right? And so we've got a good show for you. Today, I've got a good quick question for these guys. If you want to follow the show, you can do so on Twitter at the FF Ballers and on the website, thefantasyfootballers.com. We're also going to do some mailbag on the show today. So if you have a question, please send them in. Dynasty questions, keeper questions. I had somebody correct my grammar. They were a little offended.
We'll hear about it.
Oh, yeah, I put that in there. So
Yeah.
we'll get to that. And so you can go to the website, thefantasyfootballers.com, click on the submit a question button, and send us your question. We'll answer them on the show every week. We are here all year long, no break. It's February, and let's get it going. Quick question of the day. What fantasy football player was the fantasy community, or just you, 1 year too early on? 1 year too early. We thought they'd be something.
I'll go first, and I'm going to pick a good friend of the show. In fact, if you listened last offseason, you remember that we had him on the show the day that the news broke.
The day the music died.
The day the music died, when he was suspended for
You should say his name.
Martavis Bryant
go.
of the Steelers. That's the guy who, coming into this year, everyone had really, really high hopes for.
Top 12 potential hosts.
Top 12, wide receiver 1 potential hopes. He finished the year as the 34th wide receiver. Definitely had a good stretch.
Suspended.
But what you saw was, obviously, he missed a big chunk in the beginning, and then at the very end of the year, he kind of trailed off, which sometimes can be good for finding that value. You don't necessarily think Martavis Bryant had the best year, and yet, from weeks 6 when he got back to weeks 15, in that stretch where he was playing his ball, he was the number 7 wide receiver. And that is a large chunk of the season. And I expect him
That's
to
a big
play.
chunk.
I expect him to play that way for all 16 games next year.
That's including. Sorry to cut you off, but that's including that stretch with
Different
Yes.
the
quarterback
Michael
play.
Vick experience.
That's right. So I think Martavis Bryant next year is absolutely a wide receiver 1. We were 1 year too early on him. He will be there next year.
That's a really good pick.
Thanks.
I'm going to go with Julius Thomas. Julius Thomas was, I guess in some ways, similar to Martavis Bryant in the fact that he missed 4 games this year. When he came back, it was slower than it was towards the back half of the year. And I broke it down like this. In his 12 games played, every major statistic went up in his second 6 versus his first 6. He had more fantasy points per game, more touchdowns, almost doubled the receiving yards he was averaging in those first 6 games he was back. And I think Julius Thomas is somebody that belongs I mean, that offense, we saw them. We had a year to see Bortles and Robinson and Hearns and them be effective, and they wanted to get Julius Thomas involved. He had 5 touchdowns. He had just under 500 yards, but he didn't have a full season, and he's just getting in the way of into the swing of things with Jacksonville. I like Julius Thomas as a top 10 tight end next year.
You really saw the Jaguars get him involved schematically. They actually look and draw up plays for him that they weren't doing in the first half. So I like that pick.
And I'm going to go with a guy who we were on, and then we were off, and now we're back. Then we were on.
You were much more on than
yes. And I'm going with Golden Tate. This it may or may not be influenced by a certain superstar wide receiver announcing retirement. However, I see myself assuming that the
Jerry Rice, right? Jason says it's Jerry
retirement-
Rice. He just heard about the announcement.
Jerry's gone? No.
Assuming the retirement holds up for Calvin Johnson, I expect Golden Tate to become the alpha dog of Detroit, and with a more efficient, thank you, with the more efficient Matt Stafford throwing the ball, and we saw Golden Tate, the Yak Master, 2 years ago, yards after catch.
I like that nickname.
The Yak Master.
He was the Yak. He was. He led the league.
Yeah, by a wide margin. He was a monster, and I expect that to return for Golden Tate.
Yeah, he said don't talk back. You get it?
Oh yeah, yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
I'm with you.
All right.
Ever since you started explaining your jokes to us,
Yeah.
we've really appreciated them
You're
much more.
I was there.
I know. All right, let's move on.
News and notes from around the league.
All right, ESPN's Adam Schefter has reported the Rams have had internal discussions about signing a certain Peyton Manning and are monitoring his situation, whether he'll retire or not.
And or
LA Rams?
And or any other quarterback
Right.
who has ever played, because they found out
What
that
a
they have Nick
non-story,
Foles.
right?
It's Adam Schefter though, so it's a valuable source, or a reliable source, I should say. And what's interesting for the Rams is, remember when Case Keenum was announced that he will be the starter next year? You know who's not under contract for next year?
Case Keenum?
Case Keenum.
Yeah.
Your starting quarterback is not under contract. Please let them have to franchise Case Keenum.
The New York Daily News reports Colin Kaepernick wants out of San Francisco, and the Jets are his preferred destination. I don't make much of this. I think it's kind of ridiculous when you hear something like that. He may want out of San Francisco. I understand. You've got Chip Kelly. He seems like the kind of guy that could resurrect your career. I don't know why the Jets are involved in this discussion with Ryan Fitzpatrick. They were an eyelash from the playoffs last year.
Yes, they were very close. I don't think there's much to this.
Yeah, Cap might want to go, but why would the Jets want him? And I think Chip Kelly wants Cap and isn't going to let him go. So I agree with you. Non-story.
What's going on with Tyler Eifert?
Well, the Tyler Eifert, this was just an update of he just has a sprained ankle because he got injured in the silliness that is the Pro Bowl.
I won't start him this week. You won't catch me starting him.
So it was just a breathe a sigh of relief, nothing serious.
Like,
happened.
I get why that's in there because he had something more severe happen. But when I read it as Tyler not has a sprained ankle in the offseason, I'm like,
oh, no.
That is
No,
not going to be relevant.
Just a sprained ankle.
There you go. You're right. The Eagles may move on from Darren Sproles this offseason.
Yeah.
Ryan Matthews, anybody?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Just a little bit of Ryan Matthews.
Bit.
What was Jason, you brought this up. There were 2 players in the NFL.
There were only 2 running backs in the entire NFL that actually averaged over 5 yards a carry, so long as
with
they got
100 touches.
Yeah, at least 100 touches. So they were, a used running back. One was Thomas Rawls, led the league at 5.6, and the other was Ryan Matthews, the guy that they should have been using all along, in my opinion.
And won't use enough
Correct.
next year. So, all right, and then we've got Johnny Manziel. Sayonara.
The time is
on the way.
The time
is
has
nigh.
come.
The time is nigh.
All right, so real quick, who are the worst 3 franchises in the NFL? Because I want to talk about who might sign Johnny Manziel. And
so by worst, you just mean they
potential to sign
they
him?
need a quarterback.
No.
He's not a starter.
I am saying that Johnny Manziel can only go to a franchise that is essentially like the Browns, that constantly makes the wrong.
Don't be so mean.
I'm sorry, but Johnny Manziel should not be signed. If I was the general manager
Dallas
of any team,
is a potential destination because of the flair. I would say Washington. I'm just looking historically who makes flashy backup signings. Washington's in the category. Dan Snyder.
The Rams.
yeah,
The Rams out of desperation. Sure.
Yeah, the Rams make the most sense to me.
Yeah.
I agree.
So there you go. Any other news you guys want to get into? I'm not surprised about the Manziel thing. I think Hugh Jackson's a genius to try to get that distraction gone.
The only last news that I would say, because this is our last chance before the Super Bowl, don't forget about your playoff challenge rosters. If you're out there in our playoff challenge league,
That's right.
I really, really banked on the Cardinals and the Patriots players. So I believe I only have 2 players on my roster that made it through a few rounds.
My team
However,
is
don't
dead.
sell yourself short. In the studio, you are in first place. I am in second place, and Mike is in
My
third.
team is
in
dead.
the studio.
That's what I
Dead.
do. I win championships.
You
And playoff challenges.
and playoff challenges. So good luck to everybody on that this week. It should be a fun game. I am rooting for and believe that Denver will win a very close game, a very fun game.
Oh, yeah, well, I suppose we should at least talk about that one more time since the Super Bowl is on Sunday. I still have the Carolina Panthers making fools of the Denver
So that hasn't
offense.
changed for you and Jason?
It hasn't changed for me either, other than my rooting interest. I'm taking Carolina by a close margin in a low-scoring defensive game. But I find myself now rooting more and more. I don't know if it's the Peyton retirement thing, but I'm going to be rooting for the Broncos. I really am.
Did you see this morning that Peyton said he's going to need hip replacement surgery?
Wait, what?
Is that a real thing?
Not now, but like he's going to need it. His and he said, I think his reaction was, I didn't really need to hear that, like from his doctor. His doctor told him that.
So is Peyton Manning going to be the youngest person ever to be a subscriber to Life Alert?
While playing in the NFL.
He's on the field, pushes his neck.
Madden did a simulation of the Super Bowl, and the result was Carolina 24, Denver 20.
Oh,
Just putting that out there. So before we get into the rookie rundown for running backs and tight ends, I want to take a second and thank the sponsor of today's show, Squarespace. This week alone, I personally recommended Squarespace to 2 different people that I know who need to build a website. Squarespace is the absolute best. And the mindset out there is that you have to go and spend a ton of money to get a professional website. And then, the worst part, pay people every little update that you need to do on the website. No, not anymore. Not with Squarespace. Their sites look professionally designed regardless of your skill level. There's no coding required. They have intuitive and easy-to-use tools, and you get a free domain when you sign up for a year. So it is as simple as going to squarespace.com. Make sure you use our promo code FOOTBALLERS to get 10% off, and you're done. You can make your website right there, right then, no giant upfront costs, and it is as simple as can be. So go to squarespace.com, start your free trial today, and use the promo code FOOTBALLERS to get 10% off your first purchase. Squarespace, you should.
Hey, rookie. Welcome to the NFL.
All right, guys. Now, do we want to talk rookie running backs first, or do we want to just go through the tight ends first?
Let's get the tight ends out of the way. We'll get the appetizer before we get into the meat.
Okay, so this was not a year in which rookie tight ends made huge contributions.
Well, they never really do.
I was going to say, it rarely is. Now, you have Maxx Williams, you have Will Tye, and you have Clive Wofford. And so those are the guys we're talking about today. This is a group where Will Tye had the most catches amongst that group of rookie tight ends with 42. He had the most yards, 464 and 3. You had the Larry Donnell situation where Will Tye was able to come in. He scored 3 of the last 4 weeks. He was a kind of streaming fan favorite over that course of the I mean, we talked a lot of Will Tye on the show. So you have Will Tye with the better numbers. You have Clive Wofford and Maxx Williams were both drafted in the first 3 rounds. Maxx Williams was a first-round draft pick.
Maxx Williams was a first-round draft pick.
And
correct?
Wofford was a third. So let's talk at the top with the guy who went first in the draft, Maxx Williams. Do we expect him to, because this is the relevant question for the show. We're not debating his entire career on the football field. We're debating fantasy relevance next year. I'm of the camp that believes Maxx Williams is an okay player on a team with multiple options at the position, and so I don't see him changing a lot. I could see him putting up Will Tye's line from this year, 42, 460, and 3. What are your thoughts, Jason, Mike?
I think I have him higher than either one of you. I think Maxx Williams is needed for the Ravens. I don't see Betty Crockett Gilmore as really standing in his way.
What about the one hip quitter, Dennis Pitta?
I wish Dennis Pitta. We wish you well. It's just such an unfortunate career,
sucks, man.
Yeah, well, that's the point though. With Dennis Pitta not stable for the NFL and Betty Crockett Gilmore ahead of him, they spent a first-round pick to get Maxx Williams because Maxx Williams was an uber-talented tight end. They never do great their rookie year. I think he takes a leap forward next year. He'll be someone to watch. I expect him to get 50 receptions at least and be more used in the red zone.
The potential is absolutely there for Maxx Williams. With Mark Trestman, we know that he likes to use the tight end. And Crockett Gilmore, he games here and there, but wasn't really consistently used throughout the year. But so like I said, the potential is there. I'm not sure at this point I'm going to buy into it happening this season, perhaps the next. But he is going to be one of those late round flyers that is absolutely worth taking a chance on.
Crockett Gilmore had 33 receptions for 412 and 4. I think one thing to take away from this past season without Dennis Pitta, the utilization of Gilmore and of Maxx Williams, there wasn't the usage of the tight end position to match what we had expected. Because that was the hope for Maxx Williams last year was, hey, they're going to come in and he's going to be that check down guy, not the same rapport as Pitta had. And there are a lot of variables in Baltimore with the wide receiver position coming back, Steve Smith, Brashad Perryman. It's something to watch.
Yeah,
and
they might need him.
If you have to pick a young guy out, why not pick out Maxx Williams, a first-round talent?
Yeah, well,
somebody who has
I
potential.
need to correct myself because as I said that, I was like thinking back to the draft, and I remember they spent their first on Brashad Perryman, R.I.P.
So
and he was a second round, but he was the first tight end taken in the draft.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes more sense to me.
Did great out. Did
That
great
makes
out
more
as
sense.
a
I wasn't sure. I
talent.
trusted you.
Yep.
So let's talk about Will Tye and Clive Wofford. Will Tye, was this an opportunity more than it was anything else?
Yeah, I think it coincided identically with Larry Donnell going down. They needed to use him, and I don't expect him to just be the guy next year because he put up the best rookie numbers as a tight end this year. To me, I'm not very excited about Will Tye, but it's a wait and see. You saw that he's capable, and that's what you hope for in a rookie tight end.
So for Will Tye, he scored 3 of the last 4 weeks, which he was averaging 5 targets a game. I think Will Tye is the guy up in New York. Larry Donnell is just he's not on this. He's not a pro level tight end who can do everything that you need. Where I think Will Tye is an athletic guy that can actually catch the ball. So I like him.
Yeah, the
depth
chart,
I think he'll be the guy.
The depth chart next year is going to be really important because what we have seen is that Eli throws touchdowns to the tight end position. Larry Donnell was popular because he caught a lot of touchdowns. Will Tye came in and did that role. So it's just a matter of who is that guy next year. I'm guessing it's Donnell, but if by week 1 Will Tye is first on the depth chart ahead of Donnell, then he'll be first in fantasy.
Yeah, Donnell has his flaws. His hands have been a problem. When he runs, to me, it looks like he doesn't ever round a corner. It's all hard turns for me. So I just when I watch him play. So I think there's opportunity there. I don't think that the gap of talent between the two is humongous.
Well, Donnell still has his neck thing going on.
Certainly, yeah.
Who knows? I mean, maybe Donnell never plays football again.
So I do want to talk about Clive Wofford. I know that we have mixed opinions about him. I happen to like him quite a bit.
I like him too.
I think he's very talented. He was 28 for 329 and 3 this past year. Those aren't eye-popping numbers by any stretch. But over the final 5 games of the season, he had an average of 5 targets a game. somebody being worked into the offense. That's the whole essence of this rookie rundown is which guys started to come on later in the season because most rookies don't make a contribution in the beginning of the year, no matter what position you play. And so what do you think about Wofford, Mike?
I like him moving forward. The offense there in Oakland, I mean, it's trending absolutely in the right direction. As we saw, the Derek Carr came on really strong for the first half. They struggled down the stretch, but it seemed apparent by the end of the season that Clive Wofford was the guy over Michael Rivera, who Rivera kind of was he flashed last season. He had a couple huge games, so people thought, okay, well, Rivera, let's put some stock into him. But then the Raiders spent a decently high pick on a tight end in Clive Wofford, so I fully expect him to be the guy. He could probably be like a fringe top 10 tight end type of guy to me.
That's a pretty high projection for somebody like that.
Fringe.
Because what I was going to say is this. Let's contextualize this whole discussion on tight ends. Are any of those three guys being drafted in standard 12-team leagues?
No, I think the only guy that might be drafted would be Maxx Williams.
Yeah, based on.
But I don't think any of these guys are really drafted.
So,
and in Clive Wofford, those last 5 games, we have to remember Amari Cooper was he was half on the field. And so I think some of that was to do with his targets going up rather than them just working him in naturally.
Okay, so that's probably all we need to say.
Now let's get to the state.
Well, the last couple tight ends to even mention would be MyCole Pruitt up in Minnesota, but he's going to be hamstrung with Kyle Rudolph there. And then Jesse James in Pittsburgh is a guy that you can possibly watch. It depends on what Heath Miller is doing. Heath Miller's not getting any younger. That is for sure.
I think he's a free agent as well.
Is he?
Yeah, I'm almost certain.
So
they're probably gonna bring him back, but I'm almost certain
in
he's a free agent.
In the event that they don't bring Miller back, then Jesse James could become a guy that you want to look at.
And then obviously when the NFL draft happens, we'll be monitoring some of the tight ends that come out in this class, and those guys actually might have more hype around them.
But like we said, rookie tight ends they very, very rarely make
a big
noise.
Splash. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's talk about the rookie running backs because it's a pretty interesting crop of guys. I think, to be honest, you could probably make a good and bad argument for most of them. Mm-hmm. I don't think you can make a really bad argument for Todd Gurley. However, everybody else has a wart or two. And so let's start at the top and get the guy that's the cleanest out of the way. At least the one that I believe is Todd Gurley. I think I'm the biggest Todd Gurley fan in the studio.
You are the biggest
but you're
Todd
not
Gurley
far.
fan. I'm not far behind. I put it this way. Is there anything that Todd Gurley could have done better this year?
No.
Could you have hoped for more than 1,100 yards
third in the
and
league,
10 touchdowns in
double
his rookie
digits.
year, missing the first 3 games?
No.
You couldn't have dreamed for more. And coming into the draft,
I dreamed of 100 touchdowns.
well, all right. So some of us have ridiculous.
I can dream however I want, Jason.
Don't tell me how to dream.
Coming into the draft, the NFL draft, he was talked about like the next Adrian Peterson, that he's an otherworldly, once-in-a-decade talent, and those get floated out sometimes. You just don't know.
Richardson.
Yeah, exactly. You just don't know. But then you wait and you see what he does in the NFL. What he did this year said that his college background was not a fluke, that he is the guy. So going forward, if you're talking about a dynasty startup, for me personally, I would take him as high as probably 5.
I believe that's being brought up because I am currently engaged.
I love that.
I'm in a dynasty mock with our good friends over at the Dynasty Nerds, and I went Allen Robinson over Todd Gurley.
And both of Jason and my reactions was what?
I would have taken Todd Gurley there. You're a dummy.
Not a dummy.
That's not our voice.
That's in my head. That's your voice. Both of you have the same exact voice.
Did you have any second guesses after we said that?
No, none whatsoever.
All right. Well, Gurley's definitely the dynasty running back I'd want off the board first, regardless of where he goes in that draft. Why don't you read back your team real quick? What's your team right
my
now?
team.
Your dynasty team so
for
far.
the dynasty mock. All right. Currently, I would have to pull it up, but off the top of my head, I went Allen Robinson, David Johnson. Because, I'm taking David Johnson. It's just going to happen. Then I went really aggressive in round 3 with Josh Gordon. He was coming off the suspension, possibly. I mean, we don't even know if he's going to be reinstated, but my thought process was a top 5 potential guy in Josh Gordon in the 3rd round. Just doesn't happen. Then round 4, I took, who's my other running back? Oh, Mark Ingram and Jordan Reed. Rule 86 in the 5th round. That's where we're at.
Nice.
For those who
Just
are
curious.
wanting to know. Yeah.
Just curious,
and you
yeah.
can follow along. We're tweeting it out and things like that.
Yeah, you can follow
It's
Mike
good fun.
at FF Hitman if
Yes,
you want to
thanks.
keep track of that Dynasty mock.
So back to Todd Gurley. Now this is, I have to clarify this with, I don't dislike Todd Gurley at all. I'm just not as high as the other 2 guys simply because of the offense that he is on.
You mean the Peyton Manning led offense?
Yeah, possible. Just over the last 8 games, he only got over 70 yards 3 times, which I'd like a little bit more consistency. However, I mean, I'm with you guys. You can't really argue his final line. It was a monster year for him, and even missing a couple games at the beginning of the season. So I believe that there could be a cap on his ceiling until they get a capable quarterback.
And that's very fair. I'm going to do this with Gurley. I'm not going to do this with every running back, or we'll be here all day. And we'll do it eventually on this offseason. But I'd love to hear a projected line from all of us for Todd Gurley next year. And to give the listeners an understanding, last year was 229 carries for 1,106 yards and 10 touchdowns. And so, presuming health and playing 16 games,
Sure.
what do you think his line will be, Jason?
I'm going to go 1,400 yards on the ground, and I'm going to stick with the 10 touchdowns.
Okay.
Give him double-digit touchdowns, 1,400 yards on the ground. He doesn't catch the ball a ton. He's not inept at it. So, as far as through the air, I would say 25 catches for 250 yards, something like that.
Okay.
I'm going to go with like about 1,250 on the ground.
All right. And touchdowns?
It'll be right around the same. Maybe a little bit of regression there.
All right. I'm actually gonna I'm right around 1,300 yards, 1,250 to 1,300 yards. Probably agree with you, Jason, on the touchdowns. But here's what I do believe. I think he's gonna more than double his reception numbers. I think Gurley's gonna be an all-out weapon, 3rd down weapon. I would put him at 50 catches next year.
Wow.
50 catches and probably 450 on the ground. And so that will make him in consideration for
I'd say that's
a
the number
very,
one,
very high
That's
running
the number
back.
1 pick.
Yeah.
If a guy with 1,300 yards and 50 catches.
And now you know why one of us is the highest on him in the studio.
There you go.
So,
Speaking of touchdowns.
Melvin Gordon, I'll take your 10 touchdowns and I'll raise you negative 10 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's where I was going. Melvin Gordon touched the ball over 200 times and got 0 touchdowns. Averaged 3.5 yards a carry. He was the 2nd running back off the board. So here's the thing. When we're talking about, is he going to be better or worse next year?
Better.
Right? Like, how do you not get better than that? But at the same time, do you think he is a talented NFL running back, given what you saw from his
Yes.
rookie year?
If I could draft Melvin Gordon as my RB2 next year, I would be thrilled. And I probably will be able to. Because of the age and the offense and the chance for him to ascend, I would love that as my 2. The ability to have a guy come in. Look, the bar has been set low. It has been set very low. I expected to see Melvin Gordon probably not put up very different numbers than this, but have 5 or 6 touchdowns and a couple of long touchdowns, a couple of game-breaking type of touchdowns. But this was an offense that was all over the map. This was goodbye Keenan Allen. We're in a losing streak. We've got tumult everywhere. I mean, I just think I don't see how Gordon can be worse. Am I crazy?
The only way Gordon could be worse is if they decide he's not who we thought he was when we drafted him, and we're not going to force ourselves, because they really forced getting the
pressure
ball
will
to
be
him.
on early in the season for Melvin Gordon. So you're right there. If the pressure's on and he doesn't deliver after 4 or 5 games and they have somebody else, that would be the scary part.
Yep.
I'll come in here with one sunshine
Hey,
ray.
hold on.
What?
Just realizing this. If that happens again, do you know who the biggest beneficiary of the Trent Richardson, Melvin Gordon situation is?
Who's that?
It's the same guy. It's Donald Brown. Donald Brown looked like a superstar behind Trent Richardson when you saw him plotting. I just think it's funny he's behind Melvin Gordon. So,
Sure.
Anyway, go ahead.
The one
Melvin
ray
Gordon
of
is not Trent
sunshine
Richardson.
I will give you. Ken Wisenhunt is back. Ken Wisenhunt, if
He's back. Offensive coordinator.
he's back, he is a solid O coordinator. He is a bad head coach, but he is a solid O coordinator. In 2013, Ryan Matthews in only 14 games had over 1,200 yards on the ground. If you remember that Ryan Matthews was just a beast that year. So let's see what he can scheme up, if they can get some offensive line health going, getting Keenan Allen back. I expect Gordon to certainly improve upon this fantasy performance.
So is that, if he was your 2, though, would you be pretty worried?
Going into next year?
Yeah.
No.
Or would you be okay with that?
I would be okay with it because in my head, that means that my wide receivers are amazing.
Okay. Well, it's interesting, too, because this is an offseason which the Chargers have a lot of unknowns. You have Antonio Gates is a free agent. Malcolm Floyd's a free agent. Ladarius Green's a free agent. This offense could look a lot different going into next year is all I'm saying. So they obviously need to solidify an offensive line to help Melvin Gordon. I think that's a part of it.
Yeah, it's a big part of it, and just health, too. I mean, they were ravaged, to say the least.
Okay. So a lot of bounce back potential, it sounds like. Anything to add on Gordon, Jason?
No, Gordon should be a good value in the draft next year because I don't think people are going to be very high on him. There's going to be other rookies coming in that they're going to value as high as they do Gordon, and his opportunity should be there for, to be able to get his first NFL touchdown.
I bet Gordon still goes in the top 6 rounds.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. I mean, if he has the role, if they just say it's his role, he's going to climb up the board.
I'll tell you
he's definitely going to climb up the board.
What's interesting, since we kind of brought up the dynasty mock that I'm in, we are almost to round 6.
No Gordon?
Melvin Gordon is still available.
Hey, I would take
that's how
Melvin
people
Gordon in round
feel
6.
Yeah, I'm considering it.
All right.
All right, let's talk about TJ Yeldon. I think he's an interesting guy to discuss because he had a good rookie year, over 4 a carry, 182 for 740, scored a couple times on the ground, scored one in the air, was really kind of the guy, right? He got thrown into it, had some injury issues, only 12 games, but I like him. I like what I see from him because he's just reliable.
Well, he's reliable other than what I think you alluded to, which was the injury concern. My big problem with TJ Yeldon is actually the fact that I think Denard Robinson was so bad and so disliked by that coaching staff that I expect that they're going to go out and add another running back this year and try to not, because TJ Yeldon was the show. When he was healthy and he was in, he got the workload.
Except the one game where they gave Toby Gerhart 3
that was
straight goal line
ridiculous.
carries.
That was absurd. But those were like his only carries that game. I mean, the point here is I don't expect him next year to have the same percentage of workload as he had this current year, which means possible regression. Maybe that you can argue that's better for guys, keep them healthy 16 games. I would expect more of the same total numbers for Yeldon next year.
Did you mention this? I'm not sure if you said this, but they already came out and said they have to get a backup running back.
Well, I didn't mention that they said that, but that's what the expectation almost has to be.
They said Robinson wasn't good enough.
Right.
And they have to get a guy in there. That being said, I still like Yeldon quite a bit next year. Let me ask you this. It's the best question that you've ever heard. No, in the last 5 minutes.
I already know what the question is.
Is it TJ Yeldon or Melvin Gordon?
Oh, TJ Yeldon for sure.
Ooh. It's pretty close, but I'll go with Yeldon. I'll go Yeldon there.
I will too. So, all right, let's talk about a guy that could have been in consideration for that quick question of the day.
He was.
However, the fact that he was not chosen tells me a little bit about whether Mike believes he will be the guy, and that is Ameer Abdullah.
Well, there's also the factor of how much should you double down on the Abdullah Express. I think that we got to watch what happens here with Joik Bell, how that situation shakes out. Because coming into the last year, I really felt strongly that Joik Bell would not be with the team moving forward into 2016. I still think that is likely, just with his age, what his contract
29.
is at.
You don't like 29-year-old guys?
Oh, I don't like 29-year-old guys who've had a whole bunch of surgeries on their knees and their
That's
Achilles.
called time off, bro.
It's rest. It's resting up for next year. But Abdullah, so he finished 143 carries, almost 600 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He was over 4 yards a carry. Where they really underutilized him was the pass game. I thought he would excel in that, and instead Theo Riddick, I believe, was the most targeted running back.
And
first or
looked,
second.
Looked great.
Yeah, Theo Riddick
Looked great.
is
Love
great in
Theo
that
Riddick.
role. So you have to imagine Theo Riddick is still locked into that role because he excelled so much. I don't know if Ameer Abdullah can be the first and second down guy, and then you go to Theo Riddick. That seems a little strange, but they have to figure out a way to use him. He's a second-round pick. You can't just say, "Oh, we're moving on the next year." So they will try to get him involved. We saw the Detroit Lions offense really turn around once they made some old coordinator changes. Some like multiple. I guess you can only make one a year. So they made the change to Jim Bob Cooter. They played a lot better. And over the final 5 games, it wasn't an amazingly high volume of touches, but Abdullah did average over 5 yards a carry on the ground.
Yeah, that's my problem with Ameer Abdullah is that for him to run well, right, he got over 5.3 in those final 5 games, but in 3 of those 5 games, he had less than 10 carries total.
Yeah, that's
so
low volume.
So it's like if in those games where it's like, hey, he's got the opportunity, he's going to get the volume, he didn't seem to be able to produce. And so for fantasy purposes, you have to get a guy who's going to have enough volume and produce with volume. It seemed like if he had too much volume, he wasn't able to really produce.
He can't fumble. He cannot fumble.
Yeah, fumbles
next year.
were a big problem.
He can. He is exceptionally good at fumbling that ball.
It's going to have a lot to say about Ameer Abdullah. I mean, obviously a talented guy, but I don't know if his career is going to project out like Darren Sproles more than he will a prolific top-tier back. That's
Ameer
the question for me.
Abdullah's fumble to touchdown ratio was 2-1.
Not good.
2 fumbles to 1 touchdown?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's
Yeah,
better than Melvin Gordon's ratio.
That is true. I believe Melvin Gordon fumbled as many times as Ameer Abdullah did.
Only 4?
Only?
Yeah.
Only 4? I thought
He got 4 or 5.
in my head, Melvin Gordon fumbled at least once a game. So
Yeah,
let's
neither one of them
verify
could
that.
hold
He
on
fumbled
to the
your
ball.
heart away. He certainly fumbled your heart away. I don't know how many.
I'm looking at 5 in your face.
Yeah.
In whose face exactly?
Jason.
Chargers. All right, Tevin Coleman's the next guy that was drafted last year. Look, his season is one that you really can't I don't know how to properly analyze it. Let's put it that way, because he started the year. Look, he had a 4.5 a clip. He looked explosive
With
to
20
me.
carries in the first game.
Yeah, he looked really good. However, we know the story, right? We know the story. Devonta Freeman.
Yeah.
Is the
Tevin
story.
Coleman got injured. Devonta Freeman came in and showed he can be that guy for that team, and they never went away from him. When
and
Tevin
he's more
Coleman,
versatile than Coleman.
well,
right
that's
at this
what
point
I was
in
going
his
to bring
career.
up. That's what I was going to bring up. Tevin Coleman was virtually unused in the passing game on the year, and Devonta Freeman is an exceptional tool in the passing game. So go to next year, and a lot of people might say, well, it was because of the injury to Tevin Coleman. They want to get him more involved, and I think they're going to maybe be too high on Tevin Coleman and think that Freeman's going to come down. To me, I don't think they can get rid of Freeman in that role because of his pass-catching ability. So
Is Tevin Coleman destined to be the very favorite handcuff in fantasy football, right, going into next year? Because is there somebody
no.
you'd rather own behind somebody?
Ryan Matthews.
You'd rather have Ryan Matthews than Tevin Coleman?
Yes. 100%.
yeah, I can agree with that.
All right. Fair enough.
Yeah.
There you go.
But Tevin Coleman, my one kind of argument for Tevin Coleman. Freeman touched the ball 337 times. I know he's a thick dude, but he's only 5'8", so is he really built to touch the ball 330 times every single year, and you don't expect him to break down? They have to get Coleman involved. Freeman will likely be more valuable because of the pass. He can be in on third downs. He can be in on all passing plays. But Coleman, 87 carries, over, under, I'm going to take the over.
Oh, for sure.
All right, so the next two guys, Johnson and Johnson.
Yeah.
You got Duke and David. Now, Duke Johnson, when I read this, I started thinking to myself, is this Theo Riddick?
Right.
What do you guys
Yeah.
think about
Okay.
Duke Johnson? He's not going to be a between-the-tackles load carrier in his career, but he's a weapon, no doubt. I mean, he had 61 catches. I'm not positive, but that, I believe, led all rookie running backs.
I have to imagine.
Yeah,
it did.
rookie running backs.
He had 74 targets. That's sixth most for the running back position.
Total. Yeah.
That's I think that's a great comparison. Is Theo Riddick, if Cleveland chooses to use him in that situation, he's okay carrying the ball. He did have over 100 carries, but for under 400 yards, 3.6 a carry, it was pretty rough for Duke. And one of the biggest knocks on him coming out of college was his inability to stay healthy throughout. Maybe he doesn't miss a game, but he just seems to get nicked up a lot. But if they want to focus him into that pass-catching role, if you recall, I don't remember who the quarterback was at the time, but he ran a wheel out
I remember that
the left
play.
side of the field and caught a touchdown.
Yeah, it was McCown.
It was McCown?
Yeah, it was McCown.
And it was an amazing catch, a wide receiver level of
I've seen
catch.
him make several of those catches.
So if they want to use him in that role, which sixth most targets for a running back, that's pretty nice stuff.
Could you see him putting up 80 receptions next year?
80 might be a little bit high, but
That's what Riddick did, just so you know.
Right, okay.
I was just curious, as a benchmark, do you think Duke Johnson can...
Is 80 the most in the league?
So he had
Last year, yeah.
he had 80 on 99 targets. Duke had 61 on 74 targets. And so he would need to take a little bit of a leap. A part of that's just going to be an offense that's more proficient with an offensive line that's better, but
And really depends on
that's a stretch probably.
Depends on the quarterback. It felt like Manziel, when he was in, didn't really use Duke Johnson in that role. But it seems like it'll be McCown's team moving forward unless they spend their high pick on a quarterback and they put him in immediately.
Well,
so I love Duke Johnson in PPR leagues.
yeah, if you're in a PPR league, he is going to be great. And one of the weird things, we knew he was a pass-catching back coming out of college, but you remember in week 3, when we were going into week 3, Duke Johnson had 0 receptions. Maybe even 0 targets. They weren't using him in that role at all in weeks 1 and 2. 0 catches, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Wait a minute, we forgot. We got Duke Johnson. We can use him."
Well, that's just rookie, man.
In
That's
the
just
passing
rookie.
game, right? So I do think that he takes a step up and has a better year next year than this year. But you can't get too hot and heavy because he wasn't that good carrying the ball as a running back. So in a PPR league, you can have enough value, I think, there. In a standard league, I'm probably going to avoid him.
Okay, so Mike, why don't you make sure we know who the next guy?
David Johnson.
All right, it had been too long.
Yeah.
David Johnson.
You want to talk about a pass-catching back who can run behind the line? That is David Johnson. His pace after he took over as the starting running back would have been a 72-catch pace, better than the aforementioned Duke Johnson.
Just looking at that, I mean, he was just behind Gurley on yards per carry. We're talking about David Johnson here because we ordered this by where they were drafted, but Gurley and Johnson and Rawls are the 3 rookie running backs that would be projected as a higher tier than everybody else. David Johnson had 8 touchdowns on the ground. He had another 4 through the air. So you look at, my projection of Gurley becoming more of the passing down back or having more volume in that area. You've already got that proven with David Johnson. So in half point and full point, I know, Mike, I think you're on the camp where you'd rather have David Johnson going into next year than you would Todd Gurley.
In half point and full point PPR,
Right.
I would.
And now, of course, is that assuming that Chris Johnson is not back?
of course.
Right.
But it's assuming David Johnson's the main carrier, and that's probably a hot take. So I apologize for torching the studio down
Yeah, I
with
don't
my
think that's
David
bad.
Johnson. But like Jason said, 4.5 catches a game for a 72 catch pace over the 16 games would just be ridiculous. And they're high powered. It's the opposite of the Rams. You have a very high powered Arizona offense.
Yeah, and here's the difference when you look at a running back and you say, okay, well, how is his offense? The reason that matters is essentially touchdowns. Do they have a nose for the end zone? And David Johnson has a nose. He had 8 touchdowns on the ground. He had 4 through the air, and he wasn't the starter for the majority of the year. The guy knows how to score, and he's on a high-scoring team. It's what you look for those guys that can single-handedly win you weeks and win you leagues. David Johnson, if he is the main guy next year, should be in strong consideration for that number 1 pick.
He's somebody who we saw, for those that aren't, Arizona locals like we are, I think the ship is sold. Is that sailed? Not sold. We sold the ship.
We sold it.
For those that aren't Arizona locals, we don't have an ocean, so we sold our ships.
We get rid of all ships.
The ship is sailed on Andre Ellington as being anything more than kind of a, a Riddick type. You're going to line a guy up in the slot, do some fun things with him. Unless he was more injured than let on, I think it's kind of done for Ellington to take away a significant amount of carries from whoever the lead backs, plural, or lead back is. So I don't think Ellington is somebody to be concerned with. I don't think Ellington's the handcuff necessarily for David Johnson, but just throwing that out there. Also, one name that I don't see on this list, Jason, is Karlos Williams.
Oh, yeah.
Karlos Williams. So maybe plug him in there. Let's talk about Matt Jones. Matt Jones is somebody who may have more opportunity than the talent that we like, but that's big, right? Like, he's not talented. I'm not saying that. He showed us some good things this year. He showed us some big plays out of the backfield in the passing game, but he also showed us a 3.4 yards per carry between the tackles when he was given the opportunity repeatedly to take the job from Alfred Morris. They were begging him. They actually went to him and begged him.
Yeah, they got down on one knee
to take the job from Alfred Morris, and he said, I will fumble that trust away a little bit.
Yeah, I saw it in the locker room. There was actually footage, behind the scenes footage, and they came in to Washington, and they gave Matt Jones a little yellow ticket. Said, it's your job. He said, no, I'm good. I'm going to give this to Alf because I don't really want to be the lead back. However, he should be the lead back moving into next year. But there's reports that Washington's Rich Tandler said there's no lock that he'll be the workhorse running back, kind of like where that's the overall thought is that Matt Jones will be the man. He had 8 games of double-digit carries last year. Twice was he over 4 a carry.
So yeah, and Chris Thompson's not going anywhere. I think he's going to be the guy that they use as the real pass-catching back in those situations.
I've got a perfect comparison for those guys.
All right.
And that's what you brought up, Chris Thompson. That was what I was going to do. If you wanted me to project, because what we did on the last show is we tried to say, okay, where are these guys going to land kind of compared to where guys finished last year. So my example for him might be a slightly better than Isaiah Crowell type of guy. Which I know sounds crazy, but Isaiah Crowell actually had an okay year.
Yeah, he had an okay year.
And you've got Chris Thompson in that Duke Johnson role. You've also got Jamison Crowder that's going to take some of the short passing game away. I don't think there's going to be a lot to go to Matt Jones if he's that between the tackles type of guy. And so outside the top 24, even if he's given the starting job, in my opinion.
So do you think he's a solid 3 or low end 3?
I would say any running back in fantasy football who's starting for their team
should be at least a 3.
a solid 3, right? I mean, he should be, and I don't think that there were a lot of them. Even C.J. Anderson and all of his trials ended up in that 3 range. So I think a 3 is very safe for Matt Jones, with a little bit of upside because you've got a guy who's young, who's coming into another season here, and the team was improving. So
yeah, the offense definitely improved over the second half of the year when Cousins set phasers to kill.
Yeah. And now he's going to set his phasers to...
He's going to set his bank account to full.
To full. There you go. Thank you for that. All right, Jeremy Langford, guys. Is he being talked about enough? Will he be talked about enough? I think he will.
He's going to be over-talked about.
Yes, he will.
He's going to be talked about like he is coming in and going to be the heir apparent to Forte, and you can now get the new Forte because when Forte was gone, Langford showed great. He had a stretch where he was
humongous.
10
feet tall.
He was a super high scoring fantasy option for a couple weeks, was at or near the top of the running back list. But the problem is that happened due to injury of the guy ahead of him, so he had everything. They're not just going to hand the reins over to Langford. I believe they're going to bring in another back and have I don't think Langford is going to take over the show entirely. And
so he would not get your vehement endorsement?
No.
Careful with that word.
All right, so
I disagree a bit. I think Langford will be the main guy.
I'd love to know then where you two both have him.
I'll have Langford.
If he's starting, like where would you have him in your top ranking?
Probably in the 15 range, RB 15, at least.
Yeah, I guess we're not that far apart then, because I see him as an RB2. What I'm saying is, there's
Forte was the one.
There's the David Johnsons, the Thomas Rawls,
Of
where
the
you're
rookies,
saying if the guy, if Marshawn Lynch isn't there, if Chris Johnson isn't there, if Forte isn't there, and those guys leave, all of a sudden we're talking about he could be the best back in the league. That is not Langford at all to me.
Yeah, and I don't have a different projection for him than you guys do. I do like having the running back that Cutler dumps the ball to. And so in PPR leagues, I would really not mind that.
The concern for me, I'll say it's a slight concern, but it was weird. Kadeem Carey, at the end of the year, all of a sudden, John Fox says, "We're going to get you involved, especially on the goal line, Kadeem Carey. You deserve those end zone touchdowns."
End zone touchdowns, our favorite.
If I wanted to quote a fantastic sports journalist. End zone touchdowns.
That would be me. That would be me. I want all my touchdowns in the end zone. I don't want them on the 5. I don't want them on the 10. I want them inside the goal line.
But I like Langford. I think he'll be solid.
All right, let's talk about a couple other guys. Let's talk about Javorius Allen. Let's talk about David Cobb.
Javorius, man. Question mark city.
Okay, so the reason being you had major injury this year. Justin Forsett and Lorenzo
Taliaferro.
I should have let you go. Lorenzo.
Oh, Lorenzo. Yes. Yeah, Lorenzo. And Lorenzo's good.
I like him.
Justin Forsett, we saw he can be very solid. So there is the potential for just a fantasy train wreck at the running back position in Baltimore, never really knowing who it's going to be. They haven't made any kind of announcement of who will be starting. Forsett didn't have a kind of a debilitating injury, broke his arm, so that once that heals, he's good to go. It's not like
pretty debilitating.
But
no,
for the
I know
season,
what you mean.
He didn't tear his knee up.
It's not a degenerative situation. You just get better and you get back on the field.
Absolutely.
But you're still a year older.
Yeah, he is a year older, and he Forsett started slow, but he started to really pick up his play before Aaron Donald destroyed his life.
If you want to make being a fantasy analyst very, very difficult, here's what you do. I've got the recipe. You are Baltimore, and you get your quarterback injured, and your number one wide receiver injured, and your rookie wide receiver injured, and your
starting running back injured.
Your starting running back injured, and they're a big bounce back candidate for me next year, just as a team. But that makes projecting right now those guys very difficult. I don't think Javorius Allen I think he's an NFL player and an NFL running back. I do think that. I think if he was in a different situation, maybe I'd like him a little bit better.
His value really came from pass catching.
Passing game, yep.
I mean,
Mark Trestman back again next year, second season in that offense.
Right, but the dump-offs when Javorius, I'm trying to recall, I know he had the Dolphin game where he had 12 catches or whatever it was, but that was not Joe Flacco, right? That was Schaub.
Yes, you are correct. That was
so Schaub. When Buck Allen was getting all those dump-off passes, that wasn't Flacco doing it, and Flacco is going to be back.
Yeah, to me, give me Forsett or give me death.
Okay. All right.
That's the only one.
Speaking of death, let's move on to David Cobb. David Cobb was 2.8 a carry in his debut season. Couldn't get on the field. Didn't make a contribution. Is David Cobb a bust or is he not?
Too early to tell if he's a bust. He barely was used. He only had 50
IR
carries.
designated to return, so he missed most of the season.
But I'm not looking for.
Well, he certainly didn't make a mark when he returned.
I'm not looking for the starting running back for the Tennessee Titans.
Really?
Yes.
With Mariota back there?
Well,
You don't see
unless Mariota is the starting running back, then no.
Well, I was going to say, are you not looking because you are the starting running back?
No,
Did you get that job?
I'm simply saying I don't think that offense is going to be one that does very well. I don't think it's going to be a high-powered offense, and whoever the starting running back is there, which is going to be a question mark, is going to change. I think through the season with Malarkey there, you're going to have, okay, we're going to give it this guy this week, this guy that week. I don't want any part of it. So to me, David Cobb had a bust year as a rookie and is going to
28th scoring offense. They were not a good scoring offense.
Yeah.
And David Cobb, he really only had one game where they fully committed to him. It was the final week of the season. 19 carries, 73 yards, and a touchdown. 3.8 carry. It's not terrible.
So they hand him the job. Where does he go? How does he finish? If they give him that job,
if they give him the job and he's a starting running back, he should be a 2 at the least. We were talking about Matt Jones. We're talking about Matt Jones,
right? Would you like him more or less than Matt Jones if those guys were both handed the job?
Ooh, that's interesting. I'd probably go with Matt Jones there in that situation.
And I would say give me Forsett or give me death.
All right. Let's talk about 3 more guys. Ajayi, Thomas Rawls, and Karlos Williams. Very interesting because you talk about, I guess we'll get to him. We'll get to Karlos. He had a nose for the end zone as well. But Ajayi is somebody who Jason brought up on the show the other day. So why don't you talk a little bit about him?
Sure. The expectation right now is that Lamar Miller isn't going to be able to be re-signed. They have money that they need to spend at other positions to give Lamar Miller a good contract when he is essentially the number one running back free agent for other teams to go and try to acquire. He probably isn't back. It wouldn't shock me if he's back. But in a world where he leaves, Ajayi, in a world without Lamar Miller, Ajayi showed last year that he was capable of playing in the NFL. There were questions from where he has one of the best college careers of anyone ever. I forget how many touchdowns he scored. I don't remember. I just remember thinking it was straight
touchdowns.
Super Tecmo Bowl numbers. And
first down.
Yes. So
it was 28 on the ground and 4 in the air.
Yes,
in his final season.
Touchdowns
at
on the
Boise
ground.
State.
That's pretty good. Pretty good. And so for me, what I saw, I watched a lot of the Dolphins games last year with a focus on the running back position. And if he's gone, Ajayi is going to be fully capable in the passing game, in the running game, to be a productive running back. And I definitely would project him much higher next year than what he showed this year.
The question marks are the offense. I mean, it's Lamar Miller was great when they would actually give him the ball. It's a completely new coaching unit. So for Lamar Miller to stay in Miami, I think they're going to have to overpay him, which I don't believe that they will do that. If you're Lamar Miller, I mean, I know that it's a new coaching staff and everything, but do you really want to go back after years and years of just feeling like your soul is being sucked away because they won't give you an opportunity? I'd go elsewhere.
Should just retire.
Yeah.
Go Calvin.
Should just retire.
It's been a good run.
See ya.
I know I'm in line for a big contract, but
Calvin will donate that money. He'll come back for a year and donate that money. All right, so
that's so generous.
Thomas Rawls, he's in the discussion with Gurley and with David Johnson. He had an incredible year, 147 for 830 and 5.6 per carry, and he could catch the ball a little bit. However, he got injured again, same type of situation as maybe Forsett, where it was a fracture. Hopefully he can recover and be fine. If he's fine and he's got the job and there's no Marshawn Lynch, Thomas Rawls is going to end the year with how many yards?
How many yards? Ooh, over 1,000.
Is he the guy?
If he is given the job, and we've been talking about this in the office where it sure seems like he is, but Pete Carroll, Peach Cobbler up there in Seattle, loves competition, so they're going to bring somebody in. I imagine that Christine Michael will be back, but Rawls already beat him out, so you think he can do it again. Because up in Seattle, it's you win the competition, you play. But if Rawls is the guy, and especially they're going to – I think this helps him even more. If they let Russell Wilson open it up, like we've been talking about, and just improve the power, the scoring of the offense in Seattle, that only helps things for me, for Thomas Rawls, up his touchdown potential. And we saw just monster games from Thomas Rawls this year when he would fill in for Lynch in spot starts. And that's another thing. Marshawn Lynch stunk. He had a bad year. And Thomas Rawls was playing on the same team, dominating. So the fresh legs, the youth of Thomas Rawls, I think leads him to be he'll be a strong
first-round pick.
I don't know if I would take him in the first round, but
okay.
He'll go in the second round at the latest.
What I liked was that you saw Rawls have that kind of success in the new offense, in the new passing-orientated, more efficient, little bit different offense. You remember when Marshawn Lynch came back, they had to go and tell him, Tom Cable had to come and say, look, this is not the team you left. This is not the same team that you were on when you got hurt. And it's nice to see Rawls is obviously young. He runs with an edge. Everything you saw with your eyes said this guy is prolific potential and like David Johnson on an offense that can score a lot of points.
Yeah, the difference to me is simply that you've got, when we're talking about David Johnson, Todd Gurley, and Thomas Rawls, you have three great fantasy options for sophomore years this next year, but David Johnson and Todd Gurley are physical specimens that the 5'9" Todd Rawls isn't. He went undrafted. There were character issues, which of course you don't like, but you like that that's part of the reason he went undrafted as opposed to just
talent.
Yeah, it wasn't talent. He is talented, but he wasn't expected to be as talented as the other two guys, even aside from the character issues. So I'm going to lean towards that with David Johnson and Todd Gurley over the Thomas Rawls.
All right, and the Thomas Rawls. Now, we accidentally skipped him, a fifth-round pick, Karlos Williams. We didn't really skip him because we're talking about him right now. So he had how many touchdowns? 7 touchdowns on the ground, was somebody who was explosive. Now, he only had 93 attempts, right? So he wasn't qualified for that stat we gave earlier, which was like
over 5
with 100 attempts. He had 93 attempts. He was 5.6, the same as Thomas Rawls. He's dynamic. I like him more than having Tevin Coleman as a backup by any.
It was just
for sure. So, what is his ceiling though? His ceiling is just attached to LeSean McCoy's knees.
100%. Because if LeSean McCoy is in, he is the guy there, and we saw Karlos Williams have success even when LeSean McCoy was there, but not bankable success, not startable success from a fantasy roster. You couldn't put him in and hope for that touchdown, even though he kept doing it, and you're not going to be able to do it next year. However, he is probably I would go Ryan Matthews, Karlos Williams, Tevin Coleman as far as the 3 most valuable handcuffs to own next year. And if I have LeSean McCoy, I'm spending high on Karlos Williams.
If you were to project out his touchdowns per touch and give him the same amount of touches as Devonta Freeman, Karlos Williams would have scored 29 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So just to show his efficiency and his big playability, I thought that would be funny to look at. So I'm not projecting 29 touchdowns if McCoy goes down with an offseason injury. But he's what you love as a franchise who drafts a guy in the 5th round, and you can say, boy, if my starter went down, we wouldn't skip a beat, really. I mean, you lose a little bit of what you can do with LeSean McCoy that you can't do with Karlos Williams, but you've got a runner who looks like, 22 years old and a lot of burst. So I like Karlos Williams, but he's in that above Tevin Coleman handcuff, should be drafted probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
And somebody who was really good this year, a really, really good player. So we're done with the rookie rundown with those positions. We're going to go ahead and get into the mailbag. We're going to go ahead and extend the episode into the mailbag.
Mailbag.
take your pain. Technical difficulties.
All right, let's move from
back-to-back episodes.
It's just frozen.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Just got to let it go, Mike.
Well, let's read the best mailbag of all time here.
All right, if you have a question, you can submit one on the website, thefantasyfootballers.com, or you can call our voicemail, number 302-464-TFFB. Jason calls this the best because someone named Liz comes to his defense.
Well, your Queen Elsa joke was not lost on me.
All right, thank you.
Just letting you know.
Dear Jason, I feel like you've been getting an inordinate amount of crap from Andy about your adventurous grammar. That's the best. You should register that domain immediately. In the last few episodes. Next time, feel free to point out that he's been pronouncing vehemently wrong for at least the entire 2015 season. Thank you in advance because it kills me every time. Thank you, Liz. You make me feel small.
Liz, you are
But you're
bright
absolutely
and
correct.
intelligent
You're
and
very
beautiful. And thank you, Liz, to coming to my defense. Anyone else that wants to come to my defense, please visit the website and submit a question.
AdventurousGrammar.com.
Go to adventurousgrammar.com.
/repertoire.
Where everyone plays good.
But I did confirm I was pronouncing that word very, very wrong. I was leaving an in out of the word vehemently, which I've now practiced and learned how to use properly.
I didn't hear an in that time.
Vehemently? Vehemently. Yeah, there's an in there.
All right.
Vehemently.
All right.
All right. Zach in Portland, please
Whoa,
tell
what's
me.
going on with Portland?
Oh, yeah, 2 Portlands
Yeah.
back to back. Please tell me you guys record your own music for your soundboard.
Yes.
Hey, whoa, finish the...
P.S. Much love for Mike's beard.
Not only for Mike's beard, but for Mike's music. All of the music found here is made by Mike.
Most. The drops, I do the drops. We like the game show music, and there's a couple things we've used that I didn't create. But the musical drops, when we change segments, I did create those. And thanks, Zach.
I had to put that in there because the title for his email was please, 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 please. So he was very desperate to know that this was, our own material.
Original.
Now you know.
All right, Big Daddy Beef Johnson. Big Daddy Beef Johnson in New York City.
New York City?
I'm in a keeper league that allows you to keep a player in the round where they wish selected in. In 2015, I kept Odell Beckham as my slotted 7th-round pick, but in 2016, I am also allowed to keep David Johnson as my 16th round pick. What is the more valuable pick,
Whoa.
OB or DJ? Wow, that's a value. That is a free David Johnson. That is a nearly free Odell Beckham.
You're not going to go wrong with
Man.
either of these guys, but if David Johnson is the starter, I'm going to keep my 7th rounder and take David Johnson.
Oh.
I will.
That's really tough.
At standard scoring, I will take. I will take David Johnson with the last pick.
It's a good question,
Sure.
Big Daddy Beef Johnson.
Because you never know when that 7th-round pick turns out to be David Johnson
Right.
the next year.
Yeah, but if it's a keep, I'm thinking about
Yeah,
a
but
keeper
you'll be-
league of Odell Beckham forever.
Yeah.
I mean,
All right. So look, you're not going to go wrong. That's
No.
the moral of the story. Mike, final answer.
I'm gonna take David Johnson.
All right.
Yeah.
Demir says, guys, which of these rookie tight ends will have the more of a fantasy impact next year? Ironically, it's the guys we talked about. Will Ty or Clive Wofford? Just say the name.
Clive Wofford.
Really?
I'm gonna say Wofford. I can't believe you did.
I don't
you
think
said
Ty-
Will Ty's the guy.
No, I didn't. I
No,
said
you did.
Donnell.
No.
I said I think Donnell is going to be the guy, but
Oh, did you really?
if
Yeah.
Will Ty is first on the depth chart by the beginning of next year, then
Jason is also going to heal Donnell's neck with his
Powers,
I'm
repertoire.
going to take Ty out of those two.
All right. Now, make sure you stay tuned after the show. Well, you can't on the podcast, but you can go to YouTube, and we have the show after the show. We're debuting that today, and we don't really know what in the world's going to happen.
we have no idea.
No idea whatsoever. But thanks for listening to today's episode. Enjoy the Super Bowl. Come back. Get your football fix on Tuesday of next week. We will be we've got a lot that we're planning for this offseason. It's going to be great. This was, if you go back and if you were able to talk to our listeners that were with us all offseason, preseason last year, they'll tell you how much fun we had and how much it got them ready for their season. And so make sure you stay tuned in. Check out jointhefoot.com. That's our fantasy community. We have an extra show that goes up every single week on jointhefoot.com, and you don't want to miss that. So any final words, gentlemen, before we close this thing down?
No, let's get to the show after the show, my friends.
All right, thanks for listening.
I got to take this shirt off for the show after the show.
Whoa. Is that that's not a teaser. That's like the opposite, where you keep people away.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.